up ahead. Affirmative 612.
Scott, buddy, it's 2026. We're back into the new year here on the Wealthy Pilots podcast. And as we talked about, let's talk about some numbers to kick things off, some key things to think about as we're rolling into the new quarter, new year. People kind of tend to think about tax time and tax numbers and all that good stuff. So let's knock a few of those things down this week on the episode. First of all, welcome to the new year, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year. Yeah, it's
Happy
good
New
to be
Year to
here.
you,
Good to
man.
be back. Always good to get, it's always a good time to spend time with family.
Oh, yeah.
But the number one like song lyric that always sticks out to us is like, "Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again." And with 7 kids at home, it's always like, "All right, girls, got to go to work." Like they're still off today, but I was, hey, got to go, babe. Have a
There
good
you
day.
go.
So.
Yeah. Well, I like the new planes in the background. Got a little color action back there.
Well, we
Looking
got to
good.
represent, all
Yeah.
of our airlines. I was getting some flack from some people for underrepresenting. So we got that
Nice.
shored
Yeah,
up,
looking
so.
good. Looking good in the new year. So, well, let's dive in, my friend. Let's talk about some numbers. Where you want to kick it off?
I thought, to me, just looking at like priority order, I think there's 2 things I really want to hit today. We're going to include this in the body of the email as well, so people can reference it. And most of the guys we talked to are pretty caught up on this. But the one thing I wanted to just hit was, not only the numbers, but then also talk about contribution strategy and like just to be some considerations. I'll say more so contribution planning considerations, I guess.
Okay.
So we'll talk through that a little bit, and then we'll talk through the catch-up. The catch-up contribution is a big difference this year, just with some of the tax law changes. And so I want to hit that as well. So let's start with the catch-up contribution. Okay, so catch-up contribution is for anybody who's 50 years or older. There's 2 separate kinds of catch-ups inside of the 401k. One is what they just call a catch-up, and then the other one is something they call a super catch-up. But they're both just different versions of catch-up contributions. One is for anybody 50 and older. And so for our pilots, that's 50 to 65 years old. However, randomly, there's an age group from age 60, 61, 62, 63. So anybody 60 to 63 years old has what they call that super catch-up. Okay,
Yeah.
So we have the standard employee contribution is up to $24,500.
That's for anybody. Yeah, it doesn't matter what your age for that. Yep.
Independent age, right?
Yep.
The catch-up contribution is $8,000 for 50 and over, so that's up
Yep.
like $500, and then the super catch-up's up $250 to $11,500. And so
35,750 if you're in that magic window of 60 to 64 or 63. That's pretty good.
yeah, I mean it's 24,500 and 11,500, so they're up to 36,000 there for what they can do on the employee side in that 60 to 63. If you're over 63, then it goes back down to the catch-up, which it's at the $8,000. So,
But
now,
I mean, you're making the most money, Scott, you probably ever made, right? You don't have the kids on the payroll ideally, unless you got, a herd like you. So people should be able, you can make a real dent there. You can really pump away and gain some ground.
well, and that's not even including the employer contribution, right?
Right.
So the employer contribution, for a lot of guys, they can hit the IRS max, which the IRS max, the base of that is $72,000 for 2026. With the catch up, it just stacks. So the catch up takes it to 80, and then the super catch up for those that are in that window can get up to 83.5 in there.
Gotcha.
And so, it's pretty significant what you can put in.
Yeah.
But there's, for some of our senior guys and gals, they are, they're getting enough from the airline. There's enough of that what they call the NEC contribution, the employer contribution that's actually maxing. So many of them won't even do an employee contribution because they're hitting that IRS max with their core contribution from the employer. Now, that said, there's a couple things to consider here. One would be from a catch-up contribution standpoint, and this is kind of big for this year. The catch-up can no longer go into the pre-tax. It's got to go into the Roth. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And so that came out as part of the Secure Act recently that was passed in 24 and going live this year. And so, you couldn't really make an adjustment. We had looked at it with a handful of clients. You couldn't really make an adjustment, but now after the first of the year, it should be live for most of our folks, where when you log in, that Roth for the catch-up is now an option. And so that's where that catch-up contribution has got to get parked. So it's a little bit unfortunate because obviously for those of our folks that are 50 and over, they are in their highest earning years. Most of them are in a tax bracket that starts with a 3. And so, for those folks, I always have this discussion, hey, should you do pre-tax or Roth? I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a preference. Like some folks are just a little bit more aggressive in wanting to get the Roth, even if they're paying a little bit more tax now. But they know that having some tax diversification in retirement is something that can be beneficial for them. And so ultimately, I think what we'll kind of look at is, first off, what are your goals around taxes? Do you want to have tax-free money or not? If you want to have tax-free money, man alive, this is a great way to do it. You can start plowing it in there. It's in excess, especially if you're in the super and you're putting your employee contribution over in the Roth. That's a good way to get a lot of tax-free Roth money growing in there. And again, it's going to increase your taxable income this year, which is a pain point for a lot of our folks. But you let that thing cook over there, when you're pumping in 36 grand a year, or even just the catch up at 11.5 or 8, it starts to add up, and then if we start to stack up some backdoor Roth IRA contributions in there as well, I mean, it can really start to move the needle in terms of tax free. And it's just a little bit different mindset from just taking the default option of, hey, I'm just going to max out the pre-tax 401k because that's how the company set it up.
Right.
So, but this is one of those things where, hey, over 50 years old, going to the catch up, it's there's an action required there. So if you got money going in, you got an action step there that you got to tend to.
Okay. All right. So good information there.
Yeah, there's that aspect to it for sure.
Yep.
And then for our folks specifically, there's, for many of them, if you're running like at Schwab or Fidelity, you're running a PCRA or a self-directed brokerage link account, you're going to have to open a Roth account and share that account number with your advisor to get that funded and get it set up. So there's a little bit of work there to do to just get that cleaned up. So all that to say, that's kind of the catch-up contribution action step for everybody there that is taking advantage of that to make sure that they get that set up. Additionally, from a contribution standpoint, I touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to at least get folks to think a little bit about their contribution strategy. Because again, we see and have seen for a long time here, many folks throughout their careers just kind of take the default option, put everything in pre-tax because, hey, I was trained at a younger age to defer taxes as long as possible. Yeah. And there's an argument to be made for that. However, if I'm just taking the default option, I am going to show up at retirement with everything in that one account. And I would say most people we see in retirement, they look back and they say, I wish I would have had money in these other buckets, over in the taxable bucket, over in the tax-free bucket. I wish I had some money in these different buckets because anytime I go to do anything with my nest egg, I got to pay the piper. And granted, these are, I started telling my kids, like, it's not first world problems, as Taylor Swift says. As you know, I've got 7 girls. I get Taylor Swift quotes all the time. These are champagne problems. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So first world problems is when our hot water heater went out the other day. These are champagne problems. And so, when we look at this, it's like, all right, if we can think about what 65-year-old Scott or 65-year-old Mark is going to look back and feel happy with, are they going to feel happy and thankful that they have deferred as much taxes as possible? Or are they going to look and say, man, I'm glad I have a diversified allocation of my money, not just from an investment standpoint, right? I'm not all in one stock, right? Many people believe in diversification there, but they don't apply the same benefits of thinking from a diversification standpoint to their tax classification of their funds. And it leaves them really pigeonholed in retirement, and they start to really, have a little bit of regret where they look at what required minimum distributions are going to look like, and they start to look at their Medicare premiums going up, and there's just absolutely nothing they can do. And the number one thing that I always try to coach people on is setting themselves up to have some other money in those other buckets, is because if you're going to die first, which just statistically most of our male pilots are going to pass before their female spouses, you're going to leave your spouse in what we call the widow's tax trap, where they're going to be in a single filer tax bracket with probably a pretty large pre-tax account that's all going to get put in their name. And then those required minimum distributions she has to take are significantly taxed and driving people into tax brackets they did not think they were going to touch in retirement. And to kind of put a pin in all that, the reason that I say sometimes, if you want to lean into building more after-tax money, yes, you're paying those higher taxes now, but you have the income for it. If you're going to end up paying higher taxes later, your investments are getting sold off to pay those. Okay. And so back to, let's just run a quick example, Mark. Okay. Trying to think in the end of mine. If I'm retired, right? Let's say I'm newly retired this year. I just turned 65. I'm in my first year of retirement.
Okay.
I used to be able to get $36,000 a year into my Roth just through my employee contribution and my super catch up. Or we'll call it, 32,500 if I'm in the regular catch up, something like that. 32 to 36 grand. I used to be able to get it over into my Roth.
Right.
If I want to do it and I would put it in the Roth, and then with 1 weekend of work or something, I paid the taxes on that for the year. And my income paid the taxes, and all the money went into the Roth. All the investments went into the Roth. Now, if I want to do that in retirement via a Roth conversion, and I do that same $36,000 conversion, let's say, I got to pay the taxes on that. How am I paying the taxes on it? Well, I'm reducing the amount going on the Roth, and I'm withholding taxes, right? So I'm going to take 12 grand out of that, send it to the Uncle Sam, and 24 grand is going into the Roth. And so this is where it's even more powerful to be able to do it when you're younger, because you have the income to pay the taxes. So, but again, you got to balance that with your appetite for paying taxes now versus paying taxes later in retirement. But
well, hopefully you can get that appetite balance, because take advantage of the fact that we do know what the tax rates are now. The debt is still the debt, so think about that. Keep that in the back of your mind a little bit too. Nobody likes to pay it, right? But you got to kind of weigh those options that it could be quite a bit higher later. Yeah,
and at the end of the day, I just have never had anybody in retirement tell me, hey, I really wish I would have deferred more taxes. I hear all the time, I wish I had money in this taxable or this Roth bucket. I hear it every week. And, if we can take other more senior people's who are still successful, if we can take their hindsight and use it as our foresight, to me, I think it's something worth listening to. And if we can apply that to ourselves and
learn from mistakes of others, right? It's pretty basic 101 stuff, right? If somebody else has made this mistake, learn from it. It's hard to do, but something we all should, try to strive for a little bit.
Now, just to kind of button that up, last thing here on the contributions here, Mark, some of the airlines are changing where their employer contribution can actually go to Roth as well. Okay. I would say I probably am not quite that aggressive in trying to build the Roth where we want to put everything tax-free and really pay a huge amount of taxable income, because ultimately, you look at an older pilot, 60 years old, they're going to put 83,500 over into over into Roth. That's a hefty tax bill in a 37% tax bracket. That's a hefty tax bill. And so, I'm not necessarily saying that you could, but the challenge here in maybe the homework assignment is just to be thinking, hey, does it make sense for me to maybe diversify maybe just my contributions over into that limit? But it's a personal decision, because you got to think about what's the retirement plan look like. What other things does my airline have going on? Do I have non-qualified deferred compensation? Do I have market-based cash balance plans? All those kind of things. And so it's a big deal though, because what we're doing here is going to dictate how we land in retirement and what kind of flexibility we have from a diversification of tax classification of our dollar. So it is important to think about how we're contributing, instead of just thinking about the numbers, thinking about what account those numbers are in, because it's going to have long-term impacts.
Yeah, strategically, what buckets you're using, accounts you're using makes a big difference when you're putting it in and when you're taking it out.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right, any other thoughts?
No, I think the last thing I'd put in here, Just kind of on that same tax conversation is, taxes generally are going to be people's largest expense in retirement. So if there's something we can do to mitigate that, we should be working on it now. And it might be a little bit painful now, year over year. But again, I've just never had somebody show up in retirement with regret that they got a good amount in taxable and Roth money. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, as always, if you got some questions, need some help around these numbers and around tax efficiency and making sure that you're talking with, getting a strategy put together, always consult with your financial professional and your tax professional, your CPA as well. And if you need some help, reach out to Scott. Get yourself some time onto the calendar. We'll have links and descriptions in the show details below. So click on that good information. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. And we'll see you guys more here in 2026. Scott, thanks for hanging out, breaking it down, brother. We'll see you next week.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We'll talk to you later.
Hey everyone, real quick, if you haven't grabbed Scott's Financial Flight Control Toolkit yet, now is the time. This is packed with tons of helpful resources and tools like this, Scott's book, The Dichotomy of Wealth, which is a pilot's guide to maximizing wealth and cash flow in retirement. You also get access to some great guides like this one, Advice Matters, which breaks down 4 key ways a good financial advisor can help you boost your returns over time. And guides like this one on the pitfalls of emotions when it comes to investing, and this one on the HCM byline investment strategy, and more. So if you'd like your very own Financial Flight Control Toolkit, just click the link in today's show description, and Scott and the team will be happy to get one sent your way at absolutely no cost to you.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.